I want you to pause, not panic, not refresh the chart. Just pause and look again. Because what you're watching right now isn't a silver crash. It's a performance, a carefully timed illusion designed to make you feel small, late, and wrong. Somewhere in a glass tower, an algorithm just did exactly what it was programmed to do. Not to sell metal, but to sell fear. Thin volume, perfect timing. A vertical drop that makes your stomach turn and your finger hover over the sell button. And that reaction, that's the product. Real silver doesn't move like this. Mines don't dump supply in seconds. Industrial buyers don't vanish overnight. What you're seeing isn't supply, it's pressure. Desperation disguised as control. Because while the screen bleeds red, something else is happening quietly, off camera. Vault doors are closing, ships aren't leaving, and nations that don't care about your charts are absorbing metal at prices that won't exist for long. This isn't the end of the rally. It's the moment they try to shake you out before reality hits. And once you understand who's buying and why, you'll realize this drop wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. Watch the screen carefully. Because what you're seeing isn't silver trading. It's signals colliding with psychology. In a real market, price moves tell a story. Supply rises, demand falls, sellers negotiate. That process takes time, minutes, hours, days. But this drop, it happened in seconds. Thousands of contracts appeared, then vanished, faster than any human could react. That alone tells you something is wrong. According to classic market microstructure theory, developed by economist Dr. Albert Kyle, large informed traders never dump size instantly. They distribute slowly to avoid moving price against themselves. Yet here, price collapsed vertically. Why would anyone sell silver like that? They wouldn't, unless the goal wasn't to sell metal, but to trigger behavior. This is the paper illusion. In modern futures markets, one contract represents 5,000 ounces of silver. No bars move, no trucks roll, no vault opens. It's just a digital promise, settled in cash more than 95% of the time. Now here's the part most people miss. For every real ounce of silver stored in exchange vaults, there are dozens, sometimes hundreds, of paper claims trading against it. Estimates vary, but even conservative analysts place the ratio above 100 to 1. That means price isn't set by metal, it's set by leverage. And leverage creates fragility. When price approaches key technical levels, round numbers, moving averages, breakout zones, algorithms know exactly where retail stop losses sit. These levels are mapped, measured, exploited. So when liquidity is thin, holiday weekends, overnight sessions, low volume windows, the trap is sprung. A flood of synthetic supply hits the order book. Price gaps down, stops cascade, computers sell to computers. Fear spreads faster than logic. This isn't speculation. Regulators have fined major banks billions for spoofing. The practice of placing massive orders with no intent to execute, purely to move price. The technology exists, the incentives exist, and the timing is never random. Notice the volume profile. Real commercial selling shows sustained pressure over days. This move spiked and evaporated. That's not distribution, that's a shock grenade. And here's the psychological masterstroke. When price falls hard, your brain assumes new information exists, some hidden disaster, some insider knowledge you don't have. Neuroscientists call this ambiguity aversion, the instinct to flee when uncertainty spikes. The market weaponizes that instinct. But ask yourself one simple question. If silver is suddenly worthless, why can't you buy it? Dealers still charge premiums? Inventories stay tight. Delivery delays stretch. The paper market screams abundance. The physical market whispers shortage. Two realities, one illusion. And illusions can persist right up until they break. Because every synthetic ounce sold must eventually confront a real one. And when that confrontation happens, price doesn't slide. It snaps. In the next section, we follow the illusion to its source and uncover why this selling isn't confidence exiting. It's debt panicking. Look past the red candle. Ignore the noise. Focus on who is selling. Because this isn't ownership leaving the market. It's obligation trying to escape. There's a critical difference. When a real holder sells silver, they sell what they own. Bars, coins, inventory pulled from a vault. But when a short seller sells, they sell what they don't have. They sell a promise. In futures markets, that promise comes with a clock. Every short position is a ticking liability, a debt measured in ounces, not opinions. And right now, that debt is suffocating. According to Commitment of Traders data, a report published weekly by the CFTC, the largest commercial banks routinely hold net short positions, representing hundreds of millions of ounces of silver. In some periods, those shorts exceed annual global mine production. Pause on that. They've sold more silver than the world produces in a year. This isn't hedging anymore. It's structural exposure. Economist Hyman Minsky warned about this exact scenario decades ago. He described how financial systems drift from stability to fragility when debt grows faster than the real assets backing it. Eventually, confidence flips, and when it does, the system doesn't unwind smoothly. It lurches. That's what desperation looks like on a chart. When price rises, shorts bleed quietly. Margin requirements increase. Risk departments call. Internal emails get sharper. Every dollar higher compounds the pain. But when supply tightens, that's when panic begins. Because a short seller doesn't fear high prices alone. They fear delivery. If even a small percentage of paper holders demand physical settlement, the math breaks instantly. Vault inventories can't meet the claims. And cash settlement, paying dollars instead of metal, exposes the illusion. So the strategy becomes obvious. Suppress price, kill momentum, force liquidation, trigger stops, flush leverage, shake confidence. This isn't about profit anymore, it's about survival. Notice how the selling accelerates after bullish news. Export bans, geopolitical stress, industrial demand, that's backwards. In a healthy market, bullish fundamentals invite buyers. Here, they provoke violence. That inversion is the tell. Physicist Didier Sornet, who studied systemic crashes, found that markets nearing critical stress often show rapid, sharp moves meant to restore control. But these moves actually increase instability by masking pressure instead of releasing it, like tightening a lid on a boiling pot. Each smashdown buys time, but it also increases future force, because every contract closed at lower prices transfers risk to fewer hands. The weak exit, the strong consolidate, and the shorts, they concentrate. That's why volume spikes on drops, not rallies. That's why rebounds feel heavy. That's why price behaves like it's pinned. This isn't selling. It's containment. But containment fails when reality intrudes. And reality is simple. Silver isn't being abandoned. It's being rationed. The shorts know it. The vaults reflect it. The premiums confirm it. Which means this phase, this brutal confidence-crushing phase, has only one purpose: to reduce exposure before something snaps. Because when debt panics, it doesn't exit calmly. It runs. And when it runs into the very shortage it tried to deny. Next, we follow that shortage to its source. Where supply doesn't leak, it locks. If you're only watching the price chart, you're already late. Because the most important silver move happening right now doesn't register on Western exchanges. It doesn't ring a bell. It doesn't trigger a headline. And it certainly doesn't ask permission. It happens quietly, at the border. China is the world's manufacturing engine. Solar panels, electronics, EVs, medical equipment, defense systems, all of them depend on silver. And for years, China played a delicate game. Export finished goods, import raw materials, let the global market set the price. That game is ending. Instead of dumping silver onto the global market, China has been tightening export controls, redirecting supply internally, and prioritizing strategic stockpiles. Not through dramatic announcements, but through policy friction. Licensing delays, quota adjustments, temporary restrictions that never fully unwind. This is how modern resource lockdowns work. No press conference, no countdown clock, just silence. And silence is deadly in commodities. Because silver isn't like oil. You can't ramp production quickly. New mines take a decade to permit, finance, and build. So when a major player quietly says, "We're keeping what we have," the effect isn't immediate, it's cumulative. Western markets still trade paper silver as if global supply is fluid. As if metal moves freely from east to west on demand. But it doesn't. Once silver enters China's industrial ecosystem, it rarely leaves. It's embedded into products, locked into infrastructure, recycled internally, gone. This creates a split reality. On one side, futures markets assume availability. On the other, physical supply calcifies. And here's the critical asymmetry. China doesn't need higher prices to win. They need security of access. By keeping silver domestic, they force the rest of the world to fight over what AUS left, while still letting the paper price stay low enough to accumulate discreetly. That's not manipulation. That's strategy. Historically, resource powers never announce stockpiling until after it's complete. The US did this with oil. Japan did it with rare earths. China mastered it. By the time the market notices, the metal is already gone. Watch the downstream signals, rising premiums in Asia, longer delivery times, Western refiners sourcing from smaller, less reliable producers. These aren't accidents. They're symptoms. The supply chain is stiffening. And when supply chains stiffen, they don't bend under stress. They crack. This is why price suppression becomes more violent, why shorts grow more aggressive, why paper selling increases as real supply vanishes. They are trying to maintain the illusion of abundance while the physical world moves into scarcity. China understands something the market doesn't want to admit. You don't need to control the price if you control the flow. And once flow is restricted long enough, price becomes irrelevant, right up until it explodes. Next, we move to the geopolitical confirmation of this shift, where silver, oil, and currency collide, and the dollar quietly loses leverage. Watch the currency layer, because this is where the silver story stops being a market story and becomes a power shift. For decades, one rule governed global trade. If you wanted oil, you needed dollars. That system, known as the petrodollar, did more than price energy. It forced nations to hold U.S. debt, recycle reserves into treasuries, and accept American financial oversight. Oil wasn't just fuel, it was leverage. Venezuela understands this better than most. Sanctioned, isolated, locked out of Western capital markets. For years, they were told compliance was the only way back in. Instead, they chose exit. By settling oil trade outside the dollar, using WAN and alternative settlement mechanisms, Venezuela isn't just selling crude, they're rejecting the rulebook. And this is the part that matters for silver. When oil trades outside the dollar system, dollars stop being mandatory reserves. And when dollars stop being mandatory, nations seek neutral stores of value, not promises, not debt, assets. Historically, that means commodities, energy, food, metals. Silver sits at the intersection of all three. It's monetary, it's industrial, and it's politically neutral. So when Venezuela prices oil in yuan, that yuan doesn't stay yuan for long. It cycles into infrastructure, into trade balances, into hard assets that can't be frozen or sanctioned. This is why de-dollarization isn't loud. It's logistical. Each non-dollar oil trade weakens the feedback loop that supported U.S. deficits. Each transaction reduces the need to hold treasuries. Each step quietly erodes confidence in paper reserves. And here's the asymmetry again. The dollar system requires trust. Commodities require only delivery. Countries under pressure don't choose ideology, they choose survivability. That's why Venezuela's move matters far beyond its borders. It signals permission. If a sanctioned oil producer can transact outside the dollar and survive, others will follow, and they are. Bilateral trade agreements, currency swaps, commodity-backed settlements, the system fragments, and fragmentation is poison for paper markets. Because paper pricing assumes a single reference currency, deep liquidity, and universal participation. Break that, and price discovery fractures. Suddenly, silver isn't priced globally, it's priced regionally, physically. That's when arbitrage fails. That's when shortages don't equalize. That's when vaults drain unevenly. The futures market can quote whatever number it wants, but oil for yuan for metal doesn't care. No COMEX, no clearinghouse, no cash settlement, just exchange. This is why silver price suppression grows more frantic as de-dollarization accelerates. The old system needs stable prices to project control, but control is slipping. Venezuela didn't fire a shot. They didn't issue a threat. They simply stopped asking permission. And when oil breaks from the dollar, silver doesn't follow slowly. It reprices violently because it's no longer supporting a currency system. It's replacing one. Next, we follow the final pressure point, where industry, not investors, exposes the shortage and panic buying goes silent. Forget investors for a moment. They're loud, emotional, visible. The real shift happens somewhere else. Behind procurement desks, inside factories, deep in supply contracts you never see. Because industry doesn't speculate. Industry survives. Silver isn't a store of value to a manufacturer. It's a non-negotiable input. No silver means no circuits, no solar cells, no EV contacts, no medical devices, no defense systems. And unlike investors, manufacturers can't wait for a dip. They don't care if silver is cheap, they care if it exists. That's why the most dangerous buying never shows up on a price chart. When supply is abundant, companies run just-in-time inventory. Minimal stock, maximum efficiency. Capital stays free. But when supply becomes uncertain, behavior flips instantly. They move to just-in-case. That shift is panic, only quieter. Instead of market orders, it shows up as long-term offtake agreements, prepaid supply contracts, strategic stockpiling off exchange, direct mine financing, recycling lock-ins. None of this hits COMEX volume. It drains metal from circulation. And here's the structural problem. Industrial demand for silver is inelastic. If the price doubles, solar manufacturers don't stop building panels. EV makers don't redesign wiring overnight. Defense contractors don't cancel orders. They pay. Which means rising prices don't reduce demand. They confirm scarcity. Now combine that with China's lockdown and fragile mining output. The result? A hidden bidding war. Major tech and energy firms quietly compete for guaranteed delivery years into the future. Smaller buyers get pushed out. Lead times stretch. Premiums rise, not because price is higher, but because certainty is rarer than metal. This is why spot price feels disconnected. The futures market prices optional demand. Industry represents mandatory demand. Optional demand can leave. Mandatory demand cannot. So industry does what markets never see. They buy on weakness. They buy through intermediaries. They buy quietly because announcing shortages only raises costs. And once those contracts are signed, that silver is gone. Not traded, not resold, consumed. This is the critical distinction most investors miss. Investment demand is cyclical, Industrial demand is cumulative. Every ounce used in electronics is dispersed, degraded, or unrecoverable at scale. Recycling helps, but it lags and never fully closes the gap, which means every year industry removes silver permanently. Now layer on one final reality. Governments prioritize industry during shortages. If supply tightens enough, silver doesn't go to the highest bidder. It goes to the most strategic user: energy, defense, infrastructure. Investors are last in line. That's why price suppression is allowed to continue until it can't. Because once industry signals stress openly, the game ends. Contracts get renegotiated, force majeure clauses appear, delivery defaults go public. And at that point, silver doesn't reprice gradually. It gaps. Not because investors panic, but because industry refuses to stop. They don't sell into strength. They buy into necessity. And necessity doesn't blink. Next comes the final convergence, where slow suffocation turns into a sudden break, the Anaconda squeeze. This is where most people get it wrong. They're waiting for a spike, a headline, a single explosive candle that announces the shortage. That's not how real commodity breaks happen. They suffocate first. An anaconda doesn't strike immediately. It coils, it tightens, slowly enough that the prey keeps breathing, right up until it can't. That's what's happening to silver. Not a shortage you see, a shortage you feel. Delivery times stretch by weeks, then months. Minimum order sizes increase. Contracts get adjusted. Substitutions are suggested. Cash settlement is encouraged. None of this shows up on a chart. But every one of those signals means the same thing. The system is rationing. Here's the trap. Paper markets are designed to absorb pressure through price. Higher demand, higher price, demand destruction. But silver's demand can't be destroyed fast enough. Industry won't stop. Governments won't stop. Strategic stockpiling won't stop. So the system chooses a different release valve: delay. Stretch time instead of price. That's the anaconda's coil. As long as contracts roll, deliveries defer, and participants accept equivalence, the illusion holds. The market appears liquid. The price appears stable, but the pressure never leaves. It transfers from price to time, from markets to logistics, from charts to vaults. This is why inventories fall slowly, then suddenly. Because once a critical threshold is crossed, delay stops working. At that moment, only two options remain. Admit shortage, force repricing. Historically, markets choose repricing, but only after denial fails. And when repricing comes after suppression, it doesn't trend. It gaps. Why? Because everyone adjusts at once. Shorts rush to cover, not because price is high, but because delivery risk becomes existential. Industrial buyers abandon spot markets and demand guaranteed supply. Exchanges change rules. Margin requirements spike. Liquidity vanishes. This is the paradox. The calmer the price looks before the break, the more violent the move after. That's why this phase feels boring to some people, why it feels frustrating, why it feels like nothing is happening. Everything is happening, just in slow motion. The anaconda squeeze is psychological warfare. It tests patience. It rewards disbelief. It convinces observers the threat was exaggerated. Until one day, a small failure cascades, a missed shipment, a force majeure clause, a refinery outage that can't be covered, a large player standing for delivery and not backing down. That's when the coil tightens fast. Price doesn't rise because sentiment changes. Sentiment changes because price is no longer optional. At that point, charts stop mattering. Technical levels evaporate. The paper market stops leading. Physical does, and physical doesn't negotiate. It either exists or it doesn't. That's the end game of the anaconda squeeze. Not a rally driven by excitement, a repricing driven by constraint. Slow pressure, silent accumulation, delayed recognition, then release. Not because someone decided silver was valuable, but because the system finally admitted it was scarce. If this video feels uncomfortable, that's not an accident. It means you're seeing the market before it explains itself. Most people don't miss moves because they're stupid. They miss them because they wait for confirmation. And confirmation only comes after price has already moved. This channel isn't here to hype candles. It's here to track pressure, the kind that builds quietly, invisibly, and then resolves all at once. So if you want alerts after headlines hit, you don't need to subscribe. But if you want to understand what's tightening before it snaps, stay close, subscribe. Not for predictions, for positioning. Because by the time silver makes sense to everyone, it won't make sense to buy it anymore.